I believe so.
When did you last talk to her?
I haven't talked to Amy since that night that she took me to Tony's apartment. And it's kind of odd because all of Casey's friends have been reaching out in some way. Even people that Casey had a falling out with are coming in for the rescue or the search and find Kaylee, you know, handing out flyers, doing whatever. I find it very strange that these two haven't volunteered for anything, and all of the other Casey's friends have volunteered to at least send out flyers, do different things, and they haven't. And that's kind of odd because this one told me how much she loves this child. And I'm thinking, well, then why aren't you coming out asking to hand out flyers and stuff? I didn't even think about that until just in the last few hours. Why isn't Amy asking and calling, what's the status of Kaylee, and how are you guys doing? You know, I talked to her the next morning after Casey had been arrested, and because I apologized to Amy, I said, I'm so sorry for, you know, any part that you had that Casey may have lied to you, betrayed you, or anything like that. I'm very, very sorry, you know. And Amy said, don't worry about it. You know, she said, I still believe in Casey, is what she was telling me. Well,
when you apologized to her, you said what to her?
I told her I was sorry for any inconvenience or anything to pull her in. I mean, she was obviously the one that took me there, so I knew the police was questioning her. I knew that, you know, all of that. So that's what I was apologizing
for involving her
into the whole situation. At that time, I mean, I truly didn't want to involve anybody into it, and I truly didn't know what involvement I was going to have with anybody. All I knew is I wanted to locate Casey so I can, you know, make sure her and Kaylee were safe. That's my phone. It's going to go off all day. I don't care. Amy said that Casey had told her, and I don't know if Amy told her or knew that Casey's car was in the shop. Well, obviously, the week that Casey told me the car was in the shop was actually when the car, she didn't know where the car was. Casey had told me that while she was in Jacksonville, which she never was in Jacksonville, I know that now, that her friend she was staying with had taken her car to get it fixed. Because my husband and I were kind of worried because we knew her oil needed to be changed and we knew her brakes needed to be looked at because it's been a while and, you know, we knew how old the car was, and we said it's time to have all of that checked. You need a full inspection, blah, blah, blah. And we told her, I said, we really don't want you driving all over God's creation. Tampa was bad enough. We don't want you driving, you know, all over the place, you know, until you get the car checked out. Well, Casey had told me that following week that she had been in Jacksonville for the whole week staying with friends, which I, again, know that that's not true, but I think the Jacksonville connection could be the fact that
somebody had made mention to her that she had to go to Jacksonville and she was just using that as an excuse.
Could be using it as an excuse.
Okay.
But the other part of it is the weekend that we found out now that the car was at Amscott was the weekend that she said she didn't even know where the car had been taken. And she told me, I'm not sure. She was referring that she was with Jeff in Jacksonville. Jeff was the friend that had actually introduced her to Zanny. I'm not sure if Ricardo introduced Amy to Casey or not. It'd be interesting to find out who he introduced, because he could be Jeff, you know, as far as reference to, because she's stating that the person that introduced her to her babysitter, Zanny, was this Jeff person. But she could be Jeff could be a reference to the current boyfriend. And I'm going to tell you why I say that, just like Zanny could be in reference to the babysitter. A couple years ago, she did she was speaking to Jeff all the time. I heard her talking to this Jeff person all the time with Zachary. I saw her phone at one time. She has a phone that has a photo on it, where you can have your photo, just like I have Kaylee's picture on my phone. She showed me Jeff and Zach's picture, just like she described him prior to, and she had his number in her phone, this was 2 years ago, listed as boyfriend. So Jeff could be a generic name for boyfriend, is what I'm thinking right now as a clue. Okay, so.
Jeff in Jacksonville introduced her to Amy.
Yes. Well, the person that she was seeing in Jacksonville, Jeff, you know, Jeff is...
Whoever Jeff is. I'll put quotes around Jeff.
Yeah.
We don't know who he is.
Right, exactly. I mean, his name's supposed to be Jeffrey Hopkins, but I know it's confusing to you, but
that's right.
Anyway, Jeff had taken her car, so she said that he had taken her car to one of his guys to get it looked at, get it fixed, get the brakes done. Well, that was the same day that Casey said she didn't know where her car was. She said she came back, she was with Jeff's mom and Kaylee for the day. They were, shopping and Jeff's sister. And when she came back, Jeff had already taken Casey's car to get it fixed. And she said they were going to check on it the next day. Well, this was Saturday. And then, Sunday she said that the car needed something, done to it, and it was going to take a couple days to get fixed.
What time frame are we in?
We're talking the 27th, 28th of June, and that's about when the car was, Casey didn't know where the car was. So that was her clue that I think what she was saying, she didn't know where the car was at. And then it was going to be a few days. I think she was probably trying to look for the car. It doesn't make sense to me why Casey would drive knowingly and run out of gas, and leave her car at that Amscott, which is a very visible location. I don't know if you're familiar with, it's a big intersection, Goldenrod and Colonial. I actually pass that every morning going to work. Where it's at, there's a continuous right-hand turning lane where you have to kind of merge with traffic, and then there's a traffic light, and then there's one that turns left. I'm always in this one, waiting at the light. I never get to go through it. And as I'm approaching, you have to be real careful because all of a sudden they merge in or exceed out because people turn out of the Wendy's there and the Sam's Club there. So I'm always looking at that intersection, and Amscott's been known to have police there for a radar in the mornings or whatever. I'm not looking because I'm worried about that, but I'm just more looking, but I've seen people in that Amscott. So I would have seen that white car there come Monday morning going to work if it would have still been there and not been towed. So it's kind of stupid for her to leave it in a spot where I would see that car if she's the one that drove it there. The other thing is, why would you run out of gas and not have someone just buy you a gallon of gas or two of gas until you can get to a gas station and fill up? It doesn't make sense. So I'm not sure why she would abandon the car, especially if the car had all this evidence that's going to link her to Kaylee's death in it. She's not stupid by any means. She's a smart girl. She's not smart enough to plot.
I can tell you a little bit about how they think.
I know how they think. They've told me how they think.
Well, I know. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of perspective. By bringing somebody around to put gas in it, you're inviting people into something. So the choices are leave it, come back later, or bring people to it.
She had,
and that's if that's what had happened. And I'm not saying that's what had happened.
Exactly, but she had access to a car, in Amy's own words. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. I never corroborated. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That with anybody. But that's what Amy said. So if she had access to a car, she wouldn't have had to involve anybody. And from my understanding, she also had access to Tony's Jeep. So she didn't have to involve anybody. She could have gone, bought a gas can, got some gas, and taken it to that car, and driven off. So I mean, it's kind of stupid for her to leave that car there, leave it for 3 days, not come back to it before it got towed, and then she really didn't know where it was at. Because.
And what has she told you about how the car ended up there?
I never talked to her about it, never had an opportunity. Because again, by the time I picked her up, my focus was, where's Kaylee? I didn't even care about the car.
Right.
The car was not even an issue. And so I never had a one-on-one about the car, why it was there, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate on that. But it just doesn't make sense to me that if that car had evidence to bring her to where she is now, why would she leave it there in broad daylight for her mom or dad to see it, or for it not to go back if he knew where it was? So, and they even said that it sat there for 3 days before it was towed. So she had ample opportunity to reach out to somebody. And the other thing was, when they towed it, no one's ever opened up the trunk of that car. The tow company didn't have the keys to the car. When we got on site, the guy says, listen, before you come to the car, they warned my husband it stinks. And it's been progressively smelling worse. He said it's been progressively smelling worse since it's been here. He said it didn't smell great when they picked it up, but it certainly was, and George said you didn't even have to get too close to it. Well, the guy from the